The Tactical Air and Land Forces Subcommittee meets today to receive testimony on Army and Marine Corps modernization programs for equipping the dismounted soldier and Marine. The hearing today will provide the subcommittee with a better understanding of the holistic approach of the Army and Marine Corps are using to effectively develop, coordinate on, and procure equipment used by the individual soldier and Marine. As I mentioned in my opening statement during last week's hearing on Army modernization programs, I believe the #1 modernization priority is always the individual soldier and Marine, and those programs should always be adequately resourced. I want to stress those same points today. There is no doubt that the equipment, body armor, and processes that our soldiers and Marines have and use today is saving lives and has greatly improved during this past decade. I commend the witnesses before us today for the effort and hard work they have done in this area. I've often wondered, though, if we would have taken just 5% of what was spent on the now terminated Future Combat Systems program and applied it to lessening the weight of what our soldiers carry, where would we be today? We can certainly appreciate the daunting task that our witnesses face in managing these programs. In the case of the Army, PEO Soldier manages approximately 477 products and programs that are considered individual soldier equipment. However, according to Department of Defense criteria, none of these programs or products are considered to be a major defense acquisition program. This committee will always support continuing to enhance the individual soldier and Marine's capability and protection. However, the price we often pay is even more weight, which could impact individual performance. Individual riflemen commonly carry in excess of 100 pounds of gear on all dismounted missions, some much more than that. Excessive equipment weight is a consistent complaint that we hear about when we talk to our deployed soldiers and Marines. They say, make it lighter. Not surprisingly, we are also seeing an alarming number of muscular, skeletal, non-combat injuries in our military hospitals. They're placing more and more soldiers and Marines in non-deployable status. It seems that for every good idea in weight reduction, there is a good idea for something new to hang on the soldier, not to mention the problem of power, primarily batteries. In fact, some have used the analogy of a Christmas tree, where the soldier is the tree and we keep hanging more and more gear on the soldier. From fiscal year 2012 to 2016, the Army has programmed over $2 billion for its Net Warrior program, an ensemble program that consists of several components that are integrated into the network and will provide improved situational awareness and better understanding of the battlefield to the dismounted soldier. The Army expects this to translate into soldiers being at the right place, at the right time, with the right equipment, making them more effective, more lethal, and more survivable. However, this system adds at least 12 pounds to the soldier's combat carrying load and requires at least 2 batteries per day. Does this added capability warrant the additional weight? So the questions we hope to answer today is, how do we lighten the soldier and Marine combat load while also continuing to maximize their combat effectiveness and capability? We also expect to receive updates on the Army and Marine Corps body armor program to include test and evaluation processes, current weight reduction initiatives, and the new Joint Enhanced Combat Helmet, the ECH program. I understand the ECH is expected to significantly improve the ballistic protection capability from the current fielded helmet. I want to emphasize that ballistic protection is only one aspect that needs to be addressed regarding helmet capabilities. The other aspect, and just as significant, is protection from blast and blunt trauma, the primary cause of traumatic brain injury, which continues to be the most prevalent injury from operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. So we look forward to hearing today from the how the ECH will provide better protection from TBI. This hearing will also provide the opportunity to receive updates on the Army and Marine Corps small arms acquisition strategies to include the M4 carbine. I understand the Army is preparing to conduct a full and open competition for a new individual carbine that could potentially replace the existing M4 carbine. Among other things, we expect to learn the details of this competition. In the end, everything touches the individual soldier and Marine and consequently impacts them. We must continue to provide them with the best possible equipment available. Before we begin, I would like to turn to my good friend and colleague from Texas, Sylvester Reyes, for opening remarks he may wish to make. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me add my welcome. Gentlemen, thank you for being here this morning. And Mr. Chairman, I'm at our border conference, and so I had asked my good friend, Mr. McIntyre, to do the opening statement. He did a lot of preparation, so I feel bad taking it at this point. So without objection, can I recognize him to make our opening statement?
Thank you for yielding your time to Mr. McIntyre for the opening statement.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. First, I'd like to thank our witnesses today for your service to our country. All of you, I know, have been directly involved in making sure that our soldiers and Marines have the very best equipment and firsthand, of course, know the very serious responsibility that carries. And let me say, representing a congressional district that sits between Fort Bragg and Camp Lejeune, I also understand the great need to make sure that those men and women have everything that they need to serve our country. Thank you, Chairman Bartlett, for having a hearing focused on this very important concept and concern that we have with how best we equip our men and women in uniform. The war in Afghanistan is often fought, we know, by small groups of soldiers or Marines in very tough terrain, and they often fight outnumbered, so maximizing the capability for each one of them is essential. It's also the right thing to do to make sure that none of our folks that are serving us, who have trained so well to defend and protect our country, should ever be without the proper equipment, but also be able to function with that equipment in a practical way that lets them be able to perform to the very best of their duty that they have sworn to do. Just as we want our tanks and our other vehicles to have a clear overmatch capability, we also want our individual soldiers and Marines to have a big advantage, not to see a fair fight, but to see an overwhelming opportunity to overcome anything that may come their way. How we do that without giving the troops more and more equipment that weighs them down quite literally, we know is a difficult challenge. The weapons, ammunition, the water, the food, and the other items that a soldier or Marine must carry in combat add up very quickly. Add to that the difficult terrain and weather conditions, especially in Afghanistan, and we know the task of figuring out the right balance becomes even tougher between what is necessary to carry into battle, yet what also can be lightened in some way or compacted in another way to make it more easily accessible and less strenuous when they're there to do their job. Of the many issues the Army and Marines are trying to deal with, two seem to stand out. First, providing protective body armor without making the load on a soldier or Marine too heavy to be effective. Secondly, how can we lighten that load of our own weapons, ammunition, and other gear without lessening the ability for an overwhelming amount of firepower or being able to carry out whatever other duty of combat may be required. If we can solve these two key issues, we'll go a long way toward making our troops even more effective than they already are. I look forward to learning more about the progress the Army and Marine Corps are making in this area. Thanks to you, and especially also thanks to those who are out serving even now. God bless you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Reyes, I yield back.
Thank you very much. We'd like to welcome our witnesses. By the way, while you're listening to the testimony, you might look up on the screen, and there you see the items that our soldiers carry. The lower left is the gunner who carries 144 pounds. If you look down that list of things he carries, there's not one thing there that I don't think he needs to have, which adds up to 144 pounds. You clearly, not everybody is a Hulk Hogan. We can't all carry 144 pounds. We've got to do something to lessen that load. Dr. Markowitz, Director, Capabilities Integration and Prioritization and Analysis, U.S. Army. Brigadier General Peter Fuller. General Fuller, I understand this is probably your last appearance before our subcommittee, that you will be going to Afghanistan. Sir, you leave some really big shoes to fill. Your successor is going to have a real challenge keeping up. Thank you, sir, so much for what you have done for the soldier. Brigadier General Frank Kelly, Commander, Marine Corps Systems Command, U.S. Marine Corps. Brigadier General Daniel O'Donoghue, Director, Capabilities Development Directorate, Combat Development and Integration, U.S. Marines. We will proceed with the panel's testimony and then go into questions. Without objection, all witnesses' prepared statements will be included in the general record. Gentlemen, thank you for your service, and thank you for being with us today. Dr. Markowitz, will you please begin?
Sir, thank you. Chairman Bartlett, Ranking Member Reyes, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you to discuss soldier requirements. My name is David Markowitz, and I'm the Director of Capabilities Integration within the Army G3. The Directorate is responsible for the review, validation, and approval of material capabilities. Let me briefly overview trends in soldier requirements as theater has transitioned from urban mounted operations in Iraq to the more dispersed, dismounted operations in Afghanistan. I will highlight 5 individual soldier capability areas. 1. Lethality. Broadly, soldiers in theater have been requesting lighter weapons that can effectively engage the enemy at the longer ranges seen in Afghanistan. Solutions cross weapons, ammo, optics, and soldier training. 2. Protection. The Army continues to provide threat-based, customized ensembles of soldier body armor and protective equipment. Our initiatives seek to maintain the proper balance between enhancing protection while continuing to lighten the soldier's load. 3. Network. Dismounted and dispersed operations are placing increasing demands on getting the network down to the individual soldier. The network provides not only communications, but situational awareness, access to intelligence, and support, everything our soldiers expect in the cell phone age. 4. Intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. In the counterinsurgency fight, it is imperative that forces are able to attain and use actionable intelligence at the lowest levels. We are fielding a wide range of capabilities from handheld biometrics devices, signal intelligence, and unmanned vehicles such as Raven, a soldier portable air vehicle. 5, and finally, counter-ID electronic warfare. We're increasingly providing the individual soldier, counter-ID and electronic warfare devices, such as explosive analyzers and man-portable jamming equipment. These are capabilities we had not normally associated with the individual soldier. Sirs, as you said in your opening comments, our greatest challenge is balancing these new promising capabilities and soldier load. Sirs, thank you for your continued support to our soldiers. I look forward to further discussing these issues and answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. General Fuller.
Chairman Bartlett, Ranking Member Reyes, distinguished members of the subcommittee. On behalf of the Army, I too want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to appear before you so I can discuss what we're doing to support our soldiers. I also want to thank you for your continued support to the Army and to specifically PEO Soldier. You say I have big shoes to follow, or people are going to follow with big shoes, or however you've said it, sir, but I didn't do this. It's the team that did it. It's the soldiers that did it. I just represent them, and I appreciate that. But specifically with PEO Soldier, we have been striving to ensure that our soldiers are lethal, survivable, and can operate in any environment, as you said. The well-being of our soldiers is our #1 priority, as I know it is your priority. Less than 2 months ago, Staff Sergeant Junta stood before you to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor for his selfless actions on October 25, 2007, while operating with his squad in Afghanistan. Prior to Sergeant Junta's deployment, PEO Soldier Team fielded Sergeant Junta and his unit with equipment. I submit to you that Sergeant Junta was able to stand before you on that day in January because of our combined efforts to do what he needed and to provide what he needed to fight in Afghanistan. In November of '06, Sergeant Junta and his fellow soldiers received numerous pieces of equipment to ensure that they were lethal, survivable, and could operate in the environments of Afghanistan. Their gear included the M4 carbine, 40mm grenade launchers, rifle optics to enhance their lethality, the Army combat helmet, the outer tactical vest, which is our soft body armor that had the enhanced small arms protective inserts, their hard plates inside, as well as ballistic eyewear, and we provided them to enhance their survivability. They also received the PVS-14 night vision device. Our climbing gear, cold weather gear, and a lot of other items were provided to them to ensure they could operate in Afghanistan. If Sergeant Junta were to deploy today to Afghanistan, I believe that he would barely recognize some of the equipment we are now providing to our deploying soldiers. At this time, I'd like to introduce Staff Sergeant Will Corp. If Sergeant Junta were to deploy to Afghanistan, he would be outfitted in the same kit that Sergeant Corp has. Just to let you know who Sergeant Corp is, he comes from Oklahoma, enlisted in the Army in 1998 as a military police officer. Sergeant Corp is also a wounded warrior. While serving in in Iraq in 2006, in June of 2006, he was hit with an IED and had an amputation of his lower right leg. He then went to the Warrior Transition Unit, and then he came to support us at PEO Soldier. He allows us to have this feedback as to what do we need to do to ensure that our soldiers have feedback into the process to ensure that we provide them the right kit. Ranking Member Reyes, he came from the 978th MP unit out of Fort Bliss, Texas. I just wanted you to also know that. So let me just walk through what our soldiers are getting now when they go to Afghanistan. They still deploy with the M4, which Sergeant Corp has, but now they have our new 855A1 ammunition. It's an enhanced lethality round, optimized specifically to the M4. We have lighter body armor in our improved outer tactical vests, and that's we didn't make them wear all the equipment, but the vest is sitting on the ground right next to them. It weighs 3 pounds less than what Sergeant Corp and also Sergeant Junta would have deployed with. It has better fit, better load carrying, so that weight that the soldiers are wearing that you see on that slide is better distributed across their body. In addition,
Just like just a very strong young man, he picked that up as if it were light. Please, after the hearing, go down and pick it up if you're here. It's not light.
Yes.
Thank you.
sir, we also have deployed now a lighter body armor plate carrier. It's 15 pounds lighter, and Sergeant Corp is wearing that. It just gives them the hard ballistic protection without all that additional weight. This lighter system was developed based on input we received from soldiers such as Sergeant Junta and such as Sergeant Corp. The plate carrier allows our field commanders to better tailor their package and their protection to their specific mission. Soldiers go into Afghanistan now also deployed with a fire-resistant combat uniform and combat shirts, and they're pre-treated with insect repellent. And they're also in a new camouflage pattern, which we call OCP, Operation Enduring Freedom Camouflage Pattern, which you see in this color. They also deploy with 2 pairs of mountain boots, and these mountain boots are lighter than our previous combat boots. And even our machine gun is now lighter. It's 9 pounds lighter, just to name a few items. Many of these items improvements were made because of soldiers like Sergeant Junta and also Sergeant Corp providing us feedback as to what needed to be improved so they can conduct their missions. The soldier feedback is essential, and one of the reasons that this PEO is the only PEO with a Command Sergeant Major. And Sergeant Corp, please take the seat. We don't want you to stand the whole time here, sorry. Command Sergeant Major is very important inside our PEO because he allows us to maintain contact with soldiers in the field, listening to what works, what doesn't work, and what they really need to perform their mission. An example via the NCO channels that we have just received is that our soldiers want better groin protection against IED effects while operating in the dismounted mode. We're working through the requirements process with Dr. Markowitz and others, but at the same time we're rapidly providing several potential solutions to a number of our soldiers in Afghanistan for their evaluation. Although we believe we're providing soldiers with greatly improved kit, it does come with the added weight, as both you and Mr. McIntyre talked about. The weight in Afghanistan environment impacts both their physical and cognitive abilities. Regardless, we are continuing to strive to give our soldiers that decisive edge to ensure they are dominant on the battlefield. To this end, we have deployed a new weapon in limited numbers. It's the XM-25. It is a counter-defilade target engagement system. The XM-25 is a capability that breaks parity during direct fire engagements, and our soldiers are calling it the Punisher. The Punisher, the enemy can no longer shoot at our soldiers, then hide behind a wall or something to protect themselves from our counterfire. But again, it weighs 18 pounds. We're also trying to find new technologies to provide our soldiers with the same protection at a reduced weight. We know that Sergeant Junta's body armor worked as intended because it stopped enemy bullets twice, allowing him to continue his mission. But when you think about it, what we have done with our ballistic armor is we have taken something similar to your grandmother's china, wrapped it in Kevlar, and if you want more protection, we give you more china and more Kevlar, resulting in increased protection, but at a greater weight. To find a new lightweight technology, we now have 2 research and development lines dedicated in our fiscal year 12 so that we can focus specifically on soldier protection items. This will allow us that increased focus with these new lines. We believe that our soldiers in the operating environment benefit from knowing where are they, where are their friends, and where is the enemy. We have this capability, and it was very clear that when Sergeant Junta was operating in October of 07, he would have liked this capability. He was trying to find his best friend, Sergeant Brennan, during the battle, and he had to look several places before he was able to determine that the Taliban was trying to separate Sergeant Brennan from his unit and trying to capture him. If Sergeant Junta had this capability on that day, he would have known immediately where not only was Sergeant Brennan, but also where was the enemy. We have this capability today in limited quantities in Afghanistan. We call it Land Warrior. It provides unprecedented tactical awareness as well as significant improvements in the soldiers' lethality, survivability, and sustainability for our dismounted soldiers. They can see their location, the location of the enemy, and exchange critical data with both other friendly ground forces and also our Air Force. It allows our soldiers to have that decisive advantage. The next increment is called Net Warrior, as you articulated. However, Land Warrior weighs 15 pounds, Net Warrior weighs 12 pounds. We still have not reduced the load of our soldier by taking 12 pounds off them as we provided them this new capability. We're challenged to maintain this new high-tech capability when all our soldiers want something like this on the battlefield. But we understand that Net Warrior allows us to have that essential step along the path of getting our dismounted soldiers into the network. It's allowing us to facilitate the technology, the security, and capability trades that are going to be necessary to get our dismounted soldiers that lightweight capability. We're going to also look at the commercial industry and try to leverage their technologies. I once heard someone mention that we had many cylinders of excellence within the Army and the Department of Defense. Within PEO Soldier, we're striving to better communicate and collaborate across these cylinders of excellence, something that's critically important because when one realizes at the end, everything, as you said, touches or involves our soldier. The Army has made great strides, but we're not resting on our laurels, and I challenge this committee and I challenge our nation to stay focused on our soldiers and their equipment as future difficult fiscal decisions are debated and implemented. The centerpiece of the Army is its soldiers. My basic branch in the Army was armor, and I always thought that the tank and its other combat vehicles was the primary purpose of the Army. I soon realized when I was riding around in those tanks with my crew that the purpose of the Army and the strength of the Army is the soldier, not the big-ticket platforms. So I ask you to remember the soldier is not an accessory on these big-ticket platforms. The soldier is the purpose of those platforms. Chairman Bartlett, Representative Reyes, distinguished members of the subcommittee, I want to take a moment to thank you on behalf of the men and women in uniform for all your strong support to the Army and also the strong support that you have provided to PEO Soldier. It's been an honor to serve with such professional soldiers, and it's been an honor for me to represent them in appearing to you before you. And as you said, this could be my last time I appear before you as my position as PEO Soldier. I soon will be wearing the exact same equipment that Sergeant Corp has. We feel to the soldiers, and I have complete confidence in its ability to make sure that I'm lethal, survivable, and can operate in the Afghanistan environment. As you said, I'm deploying to Afghanistan in the summer to work on General Petraeus' staff. It's with my sincere thanks that I commend you and your professional staff on your unwavering support to the soldier. Thank you again, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. General Kelly.
Chairman Bartlett, Ranking Member Reyes, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for this opportunity to discuss the capabilities we've developed and are pursuing to ensure Marines are effective, survivable, and expeditionary on the battlefield. Our job is to develop capability, provide equipment, and integrate this throughout and beyond the MAGTF. We do that from the perspective that your United States Marine Corps is a strategically mobile, middleweight force optimized for forward presence and rapid crisis response. Our priorities are our Commandant's priorities. We will continue to provide the best trained and equipped Marines in Afghanistan. We will rebalance our Corps and posture it for the future. We will educate and train our Marines to succeed in an increasingly complex environment, and we will keep faith with our Marines, our sailors, and our families. Our job is accomplished by orienting on the individual Marine, the focal point of our Corps. Our goal is to give that Marine the equipment and confidence to accomplish his or her mission successfully. A Marine's mission is not achieved as an individual, but as an integrated unit. The United States Marine Corps is America's expeditionary force in readiness. Task organized as a Marine Air Ground Task Force, the expeditionary ethos drives the way we organize our forces, train, develop, and equip. To be a middleweight expeditionary force, our equipment must be lightweight, scalable, and integrated. Our effort in lightening the MAGTF is an intentional, deliberate, disciplined, and measured response aimed at reducing the size, weight, and energy required by the individual rifleman. Our Commandant has recently stated that we have captured overhead efficiencies and savings by focusing on the following efforts: buying smarter through acquiring more intelligently, working closely and collaboratively with our Army counterparts, and streamlining our own operations. A tremendous example in our quest to be more efficient and effective is captured in the way we use and produce energy. Your Marine Corps is committed to finding ways to be more energy efficient, and since 2009, we have aggressively pursued efficient energy capabilities that will make Marines self-sufficient, increase our combat effectiveness, and protect lives. One program in particular that has contributed to lightening the load of the combat Marine is the Solar-Powered Alternative Energy Solution, or SPACES. On the individual Marine, over a dozen batteries and 6 different configurations are used at any given time. Centralizing power, standardizing that power, and reliably distributing that power has the potential to reduce the reliance upon multiple types of batteries that are currently used in systems and carried in significant quantities as spares, not to mention the environmental impacts and waste regarding disposal. Solar panels have been fielded to squads as a reusable energy source for rechargeable batteries. 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Jason Morris, is currently deployed to Operation Enduring Freedom and is using spaces. We've received feedback from theater that patrols are leaving the FOBs and patrol bases for a 2 to 3 week period, currently 3-5, using spaces with the benefit of carrying fewer batteries. Typically, a platoon leaving the FOB for that period of time would be required to carry a 2 to 3 week supply of batteries. Through the employment of spaces, that requirement has been reduced to 2 to 3 days. Lightening the load is a total Marine effort. It's on the mind of every Marine and civilian in our Corps, an imperative issued by our Commandant. We actively seek and listen and take input and advice from deployed Marines in the field, from Marines participating in exercises, or attending our schoolhouses. We even take information and guidance from Marines awaiting a haircut at the Quantico Barbershop. A few weeks ago, I overheard 2 Marines discussing helmets while they were waiting for their haircut. It was a professional and informed discussion. Later, I received this from Sergeant Paul Downs, who now works at McKayak on our base at Quantico, and he summarized our conversation as follows, and he felt compelled to just send me the email straight out. So in my experience with the Mitch ACH helmet, when compared with current PASGT, it excels in multiple areas. One of the biggest issues with the PASGT is how it integrates with current body armor. While in the prone position during squad or buddy rushes, the PASGT, because of its bulky size, shoves forward over the eyes and takes away precious seconds of suppressive fire to fix. The Mitch ACH does not have this problem. Also, the Mitch ACH is lighter and uses a more comfortable suspension system. In my experience of leading Marines, the #1 reason they remove their helmets is discomfort. The Mitch ACH helmet solves these issues. I believe Sergeant Downs would agree that we are on the right path, and we will continue to help Marines travel lighter and move faster through a reduction in size and the amount of equipment and dependence on bulk supplies. We rely on men like Sergeant Downs to think and inform critically. Your invitation asked us to help you better understand Marine equipment for dismounted operations. To do that, I briefly mentioned some efforts and options on our equipment. I've also refreshed your insight into how we are organized for mission success and the priorities of our Commandant. I'd like you to know before all else, though, before we see the Marine as a system, before we look at the equipment, we see the Marine. We never lose sight of the individual Marine. I have often visited the 5th deck of the Naval Medical Facility out at Bethesda, most recently on March 4th. I get a chance to talk to the Marines while I'm there, and we talk about where they're from, how they landed in a hospital bed. We talk about what's next, and we talk about the gear that saved their life. Mothers, fathers, wives, and the Marines themselves thank us. Our work is enduring and far from over, and with your continued support, we will continue to protect our Marines. Thank you.
Thank you very much. General O'Donoghue.
Mr. Chairman, we just have one statement for the Marines. Prepared to answer questions as we go, sir.
Thank you all very much for your service and for your statements. As is generally my policy, I will reserve my comments and questions till after all the other members of the subcommittee have had a time to make their comments and ask their questions. I turn now to my friend and colleague, Ranking Member Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here. And Sergeant, thank you for your service and sacrifice you have made and your family has made on our behalf. And I hope you feel free to take that off, because I'm a little warm and I'm just wearing a civilian coat here, so please don't hesitate to take that off. I was going to, I have one question which may be basic, and there's probably a good reason for this, but in Afghanistan, I just came back about a month ago. In Afghanistan, the Army standard individual weapon is the M4 carbine. The Marines, in contrast, use the M16A4. And I was wondering, why don't we standardize the weapons? Why can't both services use the same type of weapon? Are there individual requirements that favor one over the other based on the services? And, well, I'll wait for your answer there.
Sir, the Army also has M16A4s in its inventory. It has basically 600,000 M16s in the inventory and about 500,000 M4s. The M4s were brought into the field because our soldiers, especially in the close combat fight, saw that they needed a shorter weapon. If you see what Sergeant Corp has, that is the M4. It gives you an adjustable buttstock. It has a 5-inch shorter barrel than the M16. So it is more optimized for coming out of a vehicle or operating in a vehicle with a shorter weapon so you could better engage, and also while you're in dismounted operations. We work very closely with the Marines, and I'll let General Kelly talk about that piece of it, but we work very closely with the Marines. As we look at our new individual carbine competition, we're sharing all that information with the Marine Corps and with General Kelly's team. So we both have the same kind of weapon, the same types of weapons, and we just have more of them from the perspective that we have more infantry, and that's where our primary M4s are going into our infantry formations.
Yes, General.
Sir, the primary weapon, service weapon for the Marine Corps is the M16A4. We also have a combination of M4s to fit the mission profiles briefed by General Fuller. We have a different mission profile than the Army, which results in a different combination of equipment and requirements for both the dismounted Marine and also for our vehicles. We put a premium on range, marksmanship, and dismounted operations. We also use and employ the M4 for close combat and for missions and for Marines who have the confines of vehicles. Again, our focus is on the infantrymen. We design the vehicles around the infantrymen, and that includes the M16A4 for the advantages given range and accuracy.
Thank you. Which brings me to the second part of my question, and that is that for FY12, the Army is requesting $8.5 million to begin a competition for a new individual carbine. At the same time, the Army has requested $35 million to buy new M4 carbines and an additional $41.8 million to upgrade the M4s that you already have in inventory. To me, it seems unusual in that at least I have not heard, and in talking to the soldiers and Marines, there don't appear to be any problems with the current weapons. Is this just a modernization effort by the Army and perhaps the Marines as well in putting out for competition is it the next generation that would replace the M4 or can you explain that to us?
Yes, sir, I can. Currently, we have, as I said, 500,000 M4s in our inventory. There is an ability to improve that capability, and we call it the M4A1. It gives you a heavier barrel. Heavier barrel to the field means you can increase your sustained rate of fire, and you won't have any type of issues associated with the barrel overheating. We also, when you receive an M4A1 carbine, you also receive the fully automatic mode. So now soldiers can engage not only with a short round burst, but a fully automatic so they can pull the trigger, as you're probably aware. We have not had that in our weapons. So we are taking our fleet of 500,000 M4s and we're going to upgrade 140,000 of them to this M4A1 configuration, which is where you see the funding associated. We want to continue to improve the M4, not necessarily associated with a complaint or a challenge that the field is having, but we want to continue to refresh that technology. Is there a better way to provide them the way the weapon operates? Can we provide them a different operating system so the barrel, the bolt, the firing mechanism, we give them ambidextrous because we don't have ambidextrous controls right now. So that's what you see. We've made 63 improvements to the M4 since it first was fielded into the the force in 1991, and this is just another iteration of improvements. While we improve those 500,000 M4s, we want to see through a full and open competition, is there something better available for our soldiers? And that is what this competition will be doing for our individual carbine. At the end of that competition, we are going to evaluate the products that are available against our M4 and make a business case decision within the Army. Is there something better, and is it substantially better and worth the investment to make an investment into a new, modern, or a different carbine, which we call the individual carbine? So I hope that explains. We want to improve our current fleet while at the same time looking at, is there something else also available?
Thank you. General Kelly or General O'Donoghue?
I'll just echo what General O'Donoghue said, that the A4, M16A4 remains our primary weapon, but we've also enjoyed a close working relationship with the Army, been very open in terms of what they're pursuing, and at this particular time, we are, on the acquisition side of the house, sir, we are monitoring what the Army is doing with the M4.
Sir, just to follow up on the requirement side, again, with the M16A4 seen in the context of we build the Marine Corps on the rifle squad. So to look at a weapon, to compare the Army's M4 with the M16A4, and service rifle to service rifle would be a better comparison than what we're looking at the M4. Also, in the context of the rifle squad, we have the infantry automatic rifle that's just being fielded. It's a significant decrease in weight, both in the weapon itself and the ammunition. It replaces accuracy for volume in terms of suppression. So if you look at the balance within the squad and the mix between the infantry automatic rifle, the M16A4, and the carbine, which we use for more specialized purposes, that's how we derive the mix. So again, we're monitoring the M4, but we have a different mix of weapons which give a different context and calculus to how we view the carbine.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank all of you for being here today. And I'm particularly grateful. I represent Fort Jackson, Parris Island, and so I'm very grateful. Also, I have 4 sons in the military, and my sergeant, my oldest 2 sons, served in Iraq, and so we appreciate your service. And then I too served for 31 years in the Army National Guard, and I appreciate your diagram of uniforms, because this is me. I was at the National Training Center in 2001, and so I recognize this equipment. Of course, many people would recognize it now in a museum, but the point is that y'all really are providing the best equipment for the people protecting our country and our freedoms. And we want the best equipment, and I appreciate you expediting as new innovations come about. And this is just so helpful. And back on the carbine, which obviously is of interest to all of us, and I want to join with my longtime friend, Congressman Reyes, on this, and that is, with the future of the M4, has there been an analysis of alternatives as you are initiating the competition, General Fuller?
Sir, it actually could be 2 parts, and if Dr. Markowitz could answer the first part, then I'll follow up, please.
Yeah, sir, my office was responsible for considering the need for analysis of alternative, and actually wrote a waiver request to Dr. O'Neill, the acquisition executive within the Army. I did that really based upon 2 important considerations. One was the Army Training and Doctrine Command had just completed a very comprehensive capabilities-based assessment looking at overall small arms. It provided much of the spade work you'd normally associate with an analysis of alternatives, identifying what was the need of the actual carbine itself, its key performance parameters and key system attributes, what was the desired need. Additionally, working closely with our acquisition brethren, we looked at what is the additional information needed to complete this type of assessment. Most of the additional information we needed really had to come from industry and more detailed testing of what was available out there. It was then my call to make a choice of, did I want to have an analysis of alternatives without that industrial information, or waive this initial assessment, start the acquisition process and do a more detailed assessment of really what was out there, and with that more informed information, make the decision. So my recommendation to the acquisition executive was to waive the formal AOA and really do, in some ways, a more comprehensive analysis based upon actual information from what is truly available from industry. I'll leave that then to General Fuller to explain how the acquisition process will complement and get that type of information we need for intelligent decisions, sir.
Representative Wilson, you're asking, why didn't we do an AOA up front? And as Dr. Markowitz said, we're going to be doing this AOA, but we're going to be calling it a business case analysis. Let's take real products that are provided through this full and open competition through an evaluation process. At the end, we have real information, and we take that and we then do the business case analysis, which is really your analysis of alternatives to our M4A1 and M4 capability. The M4A1 will go through that exact same evaluation process, so we ensure that we have sufficient data on exactly what is the capability that we have, and is this better, and why is it better. So we're defining exactly what our criteria is for this business case analysis, so we know what good is and what's better, and how are we going to do this evaluation. This evaluation will be done at the end of the competition, and it will provide you that AOA analysis. I think it's a prudent way to really provide our soldiers with, and our other stakeholders like yourselves, as to why we made an informed decision as to did we buy a new weapon or did we not, and here's why.
And this scene is encouraging, but I also want to verify that it's not going to be just based on the lowest bidder, but it should be a combination of quality, costs with life cycle included, and manufacturing capability. Does that fit into what you're doing?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Matter of fact, when we go through the evaluation process of our individual carbine competition, it's a multi-phased effort. It's production capacity. It's whether or not we receive our government purpose rights, so we can then take that government purpose rights and allow other vendors to come forward and build that if we want to increase our rates of production. It's the evaluation of the life cycle costs, the sustainment costs, how well it maintains accuracy. There's a lot of different elements associated with that.
And final question, is this included in the FY12 budget as to the proposal request? Does the continuing resolution have any effect, Dr. Markowitz or General Fuller?
Sir, the continuing resolution does not have an impact currently on our M4 or our individual carbine efforts, because we had a funding line previously. So this was not a new start which would have impacted it, but it could impact us in the future if we continue in this manner. But it currently does not.
And will it be included in FY12?
Yes, sir. It will be included in FY12 and also FY13. Competition will run through 13 with a decision made in fiscal year 13.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Kelly, the enhanced combat helmet, I know you state on page 8 of your testimony, and I quote, is an example of the Marine Corps efforts to provide greater protection approximately the same or less weight as the currently fielded lightweight helmet. And then over on page 9 you state that the ECH is a collaborative effort between the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps, with the Marine Corps acting as the program manager lead. Could you tell me what is the schedule for the enhanced combat helmet, and when you expect to begin fielding this helmet specifically in Afghanistan?
Yes, sir. In December 23rd of 10, sir, we gave the program manager for the ECH the Milestone C decision authority to go to produce helmets for first article test. First article test started in February. It'll end in about 2 weeks, sir. And then we are anticipating fielding most probably in the first quarter of 12, sir.
All right. And is that pretty much following on schedule?
What we've been noticing in first article test most recently, sir, is some different performance than what we've noticed in DT. We believe now that we have identified the root cause of the ECH helmet problem that we're seeing in the first article test right now. It occurs during the curing and paint process. Normally, when the helmet is developed, and it will sit on the shelf, and it will gas off. It'll release air, essentially, and some water vapor, and then it'll go through the curing process. That was as the process was originally intended for manufacturing. Ceradyne, in order to accelerate that process, bring the helmets, make them available more quickly, increase the temperature at an earlier stage. And so what we're noticing is that is changing the matrix, so to speak. We believe that we've identified what the problem is here. So what that might do for us, sir, is that we'll evaluate the data in the next 2 weeks. We will probably need to do some additional testing. That might add about 45 to 60 days. That will probably start in the June time frame. We are preparing to see what that will do as we cross the fiscal year. But we still believe that because our folks have been able to identify, and by the way, we have been working with the Army on this. I think we all agree that we've identified the root cause, have a way ahead. So I would say the first quarter of FY12 looks reasonable.
Thank you. I'd ask both of you just to simply answer yes or no, and if the answer is no, why. Is the wearing of body armor ever optional in theater?
Sir, I believe it is no, but I will get that. I don't manage what happens downrange, and we can get this officially for you on the record. But I believe it is no. We give them options, and they can scale their body armor, but I don't believe they are not allowed to not wear body armor in the combat zone. And we will get that for the record.
Yes, if you would, in the next 10 business days. General, the Marine Corps, is it ever optional?
Sir, for commanders, lieutenant colonel, and above, had the option to modify the protective posture of the Marines according to mission, terrain, weather, and the like. It's not optional to the Marine, but the commander will look at the mission profile. In fact, our aim throughout this is give the most options to commander so he can tailor his protection according to the mission. Where mobility gives more survivability would be a case where he might want to scale down from the full modular tactical vest to a plate carrier, would be one example, sir.
All right. And the last part of my question, are there adequate inventories of body armor available for training and combat operations in the Army and in the Marine Corps? If each of you would answer if there are adequate inventories or not.
Sir, within the Army, yes, sir. When we have our soldiers training prior to a deployment, we provide them the body armor that they would be wearing in Iraq or Afghanistan, or wherever their deployment is. And we also give them the hard ballistic plates. So they wear the full complement, get used to it, load it the way that they're going to be wearing it when they deploy. We then ensure that, because I talked about the grandmother's china wrapped in Kevlar, we ensure that that ballistic plate is still going to provide you the desired protection, and you haven't cracked it during your training. And we x-ray the plates prior to the soldiers' deployment, and we also x-ray them during their mid-tour of their operation. So we are constantly checking the inventory of our plates to ensure that the soldiers have high-quality body armor and they have a high confidence in it. But the objective is give them the capability, we have sufficient capability before they deploy so they can train with it.
Thank you. General.
The answer is yes, sir. I can't improve on anything that General Fuller set out, but I also want to say that we give the Marines the gear that they need to exercise that option, the armor protective levels that Brigadier General O'Donoghue discussed. And we also work with the Army in terms of monitoring each other's inventory, just to make sure that in case that there was ever a shortage that we would be able to support each other. But we go through the same process in terms of issuing and also checking the gear when a Marine comes out of theater.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And sir, they're the exact same plates between the Army and the Marine Corps and the Air Force. So we all have the exact same plates.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. You heard the bells go off. We will recess for some votes. When we have about 5 minutes remaining, there will be time for at least one more series of questions. As required by the rules of our committee, those who were present at gavel fall will be recognized for their question in order of seniority, rotating between Democrat and Republican. For those who appear at the committee after gavel fall, they are recognized in the order of the time of their appearance at the committee, which means that Ms. Tsongas is our next questioner.
Thank you. I grew up in the Air Force, and one of the things I always learned was to be on time. And so it occasionally falls to our benefit. So I want to thank you all for being here today. And General Fuller, it's a great pleasure to see you. I'm sad to learn that this will probably be your last testimony, but I know you will serve General Petraeus in Afghanistan very, very well. And I look forward to seeing you there and hope for your safe return. I'd like to get engaged just in a little bit of pride of place. General Fuller, you and I took a tour of Natick Soldier Systems Center in Natick. It's not in my district, but not too far, and near the birthplace of our nation's Army. I greatly enjoyed our visit there and learning about the research that's been conducted at this one-of-a-kind facility that treats the soldier as a system. And Massachusetts is also home to some of the most significant defense technology companies and as a cluster in the country. And my district in particular has some remarkably innovative companies that do a lot of work around protecting the soldier, and much of it is making its way into all the advances that we see here. But the issue of body armor and its weight remains a great one. I was a new member to Congress when I first came to this committee and heard testimony on the challenge of body armor weight. I asked a young soldier who I believe, General Fuller, you had with you, if he was ever tempted to take off his body armor, and he replied, yes, indeed. So the commanders do have flexibility in the field, and I'm sure that they're challenged often by those men and women they're overseeing to take it off. But the issue of oversight has been a great one, and in the language in the fiscal year 2007 Defense Authorization Act, the President established a separate dedicated budget line item for body armor to improve research, development, and procurement of it, and it was a great step in ensuring that the Defense Department focuses on addressing this issue and allows us to provide better oversight. I have two questions, and if we can't get to a full answer, maybe on return. The Army is now approximately 14% female. How are your efforts, which I know you're working on with the Air Force, to research and develop more comfortable body armor for women progressing? And I'll get to my second question if there's time.
Yes, ma'am. As you said, one size does not fit all within the Army. 14% of our force is women. We are, on the uniform side, actually developing a female cut uniform, and we're going through the evaluations of that right now. On the body armor, what we have done when I talk about our new improved outer tactical vest, we're in the second generation of it. It actually gives you more adjustments for our smaller statured individuals in the military, such as women that sometimes it might be of smaller stature. So we recognize that we need to do something. So that we've done it with the soft body armor, having better adjustments for women. So when you adjust it, your side plates, for example, don't come all the way around to the front by the time you got the adjustment correct on your side. In terms of the hard plates, we're looking at the technology, but there's still difficulties trying to get a more conformal hard plate body armor available. The physics associated with trying to have the body armor work in a complex shape is just a bridge too far right now. We are working it. We are researching it. We're looking at, is there a better way that we could interface? Could we provide some undergarment to our women that would allow them to better interface the body armor to their body size and types, and we're working through that also. It is a challenge. One size can't fit all. We recognize that, but we don't have an answer at this time other than our soft body armor, which now has better adjustments, and our female uniforms, which are in evaluation right now.
Are you collecting any data around the impact of just sort of the current sort of standard body armor, its capacity to protect women versus, and the need, sort of undergirding the need to move ahead on developing a body armor that's adaptive to women, better suited to their body types?
Ma'am, we don't collect specifically data on women. We collect data on all our soldiers to include the women. So I would say we don't have any specific data associated, but we could subcategorize that. I could provide for the record any data that we have concerning the collection of information. But we recognize it is a challenge. We are looking at it. As I said, we haven't figured out how to conform the hard plate armor and provide that ballistic protection that the soldiers require, regardless of they're a man or a woman. but we're looking at that action.
Well, I would suggest you collect women-specific data just simply to drive the urgency of the need to focus on research and development in this area. I don't know if I have time for another question or if we need to go vote.
We have just time for Mr. Runyon, I think, to ask some questions. And there will be a second round. Please come back and we'll do a second round. Thank you very much for your question. Mr. Runyon, we have 6 minutes and 51 seconds remaining. We have time for your questions and answers. They do not exceed 5 minutes, and we will move quickly then to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank everybody for coming out and answering some questions. My background personally is very athletic, and I have some, as we have concerns of weight and being able to mobile. My experiences, and I think in my past career, we've in the NFL, we've stripped all the pads off. And I think a lot of soldiers would agree with that it's easier to move without all that on there. Where is the threshold? Do you know when we weight these soldiers down, when do these injuries set in? The arthritic knees, the backs, is something I've experienced in my past life, and I was just curious if there is that data out there.
Sir, I understand what you're talking about, and as you just identified, there's a lot of different sizes of individuals, and you or I might be able to carry more weight for a longer period of time, but it might have a more residual effect on us. We are looking at this information. We're trying to, I'd say we're really trying to do a better job of systems engineering at the individual soldier level. We recognize we do great jobs when we do systems engineering on platforms, and we've treated the soldier as Representative Bartlett said, as a Christmas tree, and we just hang things on our soldiers. We recognize we can't do that. We have to do a better job of doing the system engineering, understanding what are the physiological challenges associated with adding more kit, regardless of its capability, in the impact it will have on our soldiers' ability. Because as you recognize, once you start getting tired, your cognitive skills sometimes start becoming diminished at the same time, and that's not what you really want in a combat environment. So we don't have specific information, other than we are now thinking about this more holistically. What do we need to do to provide capability to the individual soldier, and what is that weight doing to that individual soldier, and understand the physiology associated with that. At the same time, as we heard General O'Donoghue talk about, we're looking at how do we start thinking of a unit instead of just an individual soldier. When I talk about Sergeant Junta was not operating as an individual. He was in a squad, inside a fire team, inside a platoon. We're looking at small tactical units. Can we distribute some of this capability across a unit? What's the risk and the advantages, so we don't weight down everybody with the same exact capability, but distribute capability across the unit?
Well, thank you, because also relating to that, and relating to wear and tear, and also injuries leading to that, that's also, it becomes a fiscal problem in the end. If you have to rehab soldiers, or they're being disabled and being taken out of service, and it's really something I think we really do have to address. And I appreciate your answer on the last question. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We'll recess now for the vote and be back so soon as we can. Thank you.
And that's action. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for your testimony today. And I guess there's I think congratulations in order. When will it be official that you'll be Major General?
Sir, I would hope it would be very soon, but it looks like about the June or July time period.
Well, congratulations. Now, my questions revolve around the sniper, counter-sniper, and looking back through some information from years past, then Major General Petraeus was talking about sniper detection as a significant deficiency in 2003. Then Vice Chief of Staff of the Army Cody made counter-sniper a priority in the spring of '06. So my question is, Dr. Markowitz, has the Army approved the requirement for soldier wearable sniper detection devices yet?
Sir, it's a good question, and the
That sounds like a no.
No, no, we're still exploring it, is the short answer. Let me give some, if I can, a little bit of the background.
Now, we're talking about, it was brought up in '03. It's now 2011.
Sir, the counter sniper, when it was initially brought up, was very broad counter sniper concerns. And we immediately started to do some TTP, or tactics, techniques, procedures changes, and soldier training on counter sniper, both avoidance and how to minimize the effects. Very shortly after the introduction of that TTP change, counter sniper casualties went dramatically down in Iraq. At the same time, we started to field counter sniper technologies across the board, both providing vehicle-borne counter sniper gunshot detection, systems that could identify where we put more remote-mounted weapon systems so soldiers wouldn't be exposed. We even experimented with some areas like mannequins and decoys, various forms of deception devices, with several lessons learned across the piece. Those that have generally succeeded, we've kept, including vehicle-mounted gunshot detection. We started to field a fixed-site gunshot detection because it's very valuable. In fact, the Pentagon has just had that series of systems put around it called Boomerang. Individual gunshot detection has always been an area that's been the highest challenge, really for a few reasons. One is its weight to the soldier, which we've had some of the discussion today. That's one of our greatest challenge areas.
Right.
Battery usage for its reliability throughout an extended mission has been an issue we need to do. We fielded a system a year and a half ago. We had an ATEC assessment of it. That's our Army Test and Evaluation Center Forward Operating Assessment. Overall, the feedback was negative of this initial version, in that it had a lot of false positive rate for identification. When a fire occurred and soldiers went prone, they lost direction about where the shots had come from.
Okay.
We initiated then a new, because we're very interested in getting this technology developed and out to the field. We introduced approved a new operational needs statement for a next generation. That next generation has gone through competition. Major General Full talk about the status of the acquisition. In terms of the requirement, we're really looking forward to seeing how this next generation performs in Afghanistan. We want to make sure that we balance the weight and the capability of the system well, so that we don't ask for something that's too impossible to do or impose too much of a weight load on the soldier or a battery load. So we want to see how this next generation performs in Afghanistan, refine the requirement to our deliberate system so we could field it across the Army. Once we get that information, then we'll start forward with a more deliberate requirement. But we're not stopping in terms of getting capability to our soldiers in the field. So,
well, the reason I bring it up, too, is that the Army put a request in the FY09 emergency supplemental, and that was funded at, I'm trying to think, 13,500 detection devices were, I guess, awarded a contract in 2010. But it was based on an FY09 emergency supplemental of $50 million that was appropriated in June of '09. So I guess the contract took 13, 15 months to get or awarded on an FY09 emergency supplemental request. I'm trying to get to where it took so long to get, one, from when a need was identified to where we're under contract as of October of 2010.
So, yes, soldiers do want a dismountable or a gunshot detection system that they can wear when they're dismounted. We have that capability. When you talk about the FY09 funding,
right,
we went through the Rapid Equipping Force and bought a small number right off the shelf of this capability and got it immediately into the field. Then we wanted to do a full and open competition to allow other vendors to come forward. That did take longer than we wanted. We did get through a full and open competition with that capability. We will be, the production will be available starting in May of this year, and we'll start fielding it to our soldiers. Did it take longer than we wanted? Yes. The process to go through full and open just took longer, but we did get initial capability, and that's what Dr. Markowitz said. The initial capability didn't work as well, so we then spiraled in these improvements into the full and open competition. So we believe what we were going to be fielding starting in May will provide the capability that the soldiers really want. And then we're also trying to take that same capability and tie it into that land warrior, net warrior capability. So not only do I know that someone's shooting at me, but I can push that information to others, so maybe they can engage. But it has taken longer than we wanted, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Now yield to Ms. Roby.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here today and being willing to answer our questions. I very much appreciate that. We're currently fielding the plate carriers for soldiers and Marines in Afghanistan, which are considerably lighter than regular body armor. So what is the long-term plan for fielding plate carriers, meaning do you plan to pure fleet the Army and the Marine Corps?
Ma'am, the plate carrier, what we did was try to provide that commander with the capability tailored to their mission. So they have their full-up individual IOTV, individual outer tactical vest that allows them to have full-up protection capability. They can then take off some of the components. We have protection up on the shoulders, for example, around the neck and in the groin area. They can take that off. It allows them to save about 3 to 5 pounds depending on the size. We gave them the plate carrier. The plate carrier just holds that hard ballistic armor plate front, back, and sides. It gives that commander that flexibility. We're only providing it to our infantry units that are actually operating forward, that need to operate outside of a forward operating base and at an altitude. So when you're starting to talk about reduction in the IED threat, because a plate carrier doesn't give you that soft armor protection you would need during an IED threat. So we're not planning on fielding the plate carrier to all of the Army. We're fielding it to our infantry units, and infantry units specifically going into Afghanistan to give that commander that flexibility. I have the ability to wear my full-up IOTV when I'm in an environment that could be both rifle shot and IED, or I could wear my plate carrier so I just have rifle shot protection, recognizing that my IED threat is low. Trying to give them that flexibility because of the weight.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Currently, we're fielding the modular tactical vest and the scalable plate carrier. Modular tactical vest, inventory objective there is about 108,000, ma'am, and about 64,000 the scalable plate carrier. In the Marine Corps, we plan on migrating to our improved modular tactical vest, which is the IMTV, and that will be paired with just the plate carrier. Inventory objective for both of those is 108,000. We had a chance to discuss a little bit earlier about options in the field for commanders, lieutenant colonels, and above in order to determine what protection level they've determined for their particular force. So the IMTV paired with the IMTV, the improved modular tactical vest, paired with the plate carrier, gives our commanders out in the field that option. I think it's kind of interesting that what happens, a lot of times we want to compare the modular tactical vest to the improved modular tactical vest. What we're really asking our guys to do out in the field is decide, do I want my Marines wearing the improved modular tactical vest or that plate carrier? And that's where you'll see the delta in terms of weight. We've done a lot of work also with our program manager for Marine Expeditionary Rifle Squad in terms of helping design the vests themselves in terms of where the proper fit is, how much weight that they'll carry, how it integrates with the weapon systems and radios that they'll carry. So in the end for us, ma'am, it's the IMTV and the PC, the plate carrier.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
And ma'am, as a point of reference, you're hearing me talk about a plate carrier and individual tactical vests, and you're hearing General Kelly talk about IMTV and all these other acronyms. Same ballistic capability. Different names, just like we have different uniforms on, but same capability, same ballistic protection, regardless of what it's called between the two services.
Thank you for making that clear. Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you. There should be time for a second round of questions. I just want to make a couple of comments now and then ask a question or two, and then we'll have a second round. And then I will have some final questions if there's not interest in the third round to close the hearing. Several days ago, another panel was before us, and we noted that the military does two things that we are frequently not involved in, that the Congress is not involved in. They decide to develop a new weapons program, and they develop the requirements for that and the characteristics of that, and then they come to the Congress and say, we would like you to fund that. And then for programs that don't go well, they come to us and tell us, we think that this program needs to be aborted, and we would like your consent to do that. Hardly ask our consent, we're just going to abort it, and we're telling you we're doing that. We asked that panel, could we be a part of the process? This should not be a semi-adversarial relationship between the Congress and the Pentagon. We would like to be involved in that process. And what one of them told us was, gee, you know, this is an executive responsibility and you shouldn't really be involved in that process. So I took out my Constitution and I went to Section 1, which defines the responsibilities of the Congress. And Article 1, Section 8 says that Congress shall have power to raise and support armies, to provide and maintain a navy, to make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces, to provide for organizing, arming. I think arming refers to all of these platforms, doesn't it? The Constitution says that's our responsibility, and disciplining the military, and the authority of training the military according to discipline prescribed by the Congress. And then I went to Section 2 of the Constitution, which describes the powers of the executive. And I looked for all of those parts of Section 2 that relate to the military, and I found one. And that says, the President shall be the Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into the actual service of the United States. So if we went strictly by the Constitution, the Congress ought to have responsibility for almost everything that the Pentagon now claims that is the province of the executive, and we have no responsibility for that. As a compromise, we would like to be in on the process. We have a very capable staff here. Some of our members have a background. We have engineers. I'm a scientist and an old farm boy. Because I was a farm boy and I was born in 1926 and lived through the Great Depression, we learned to make do. And so when I got my doctorate in human physiology and I went to work for the Navy, I saw opportunities to make do with some of the skills that I developed in getting my doctorate, and I ended up being awarded 20 patents, 19 of them military patents. And so I'm pleading for an opportunity for us to work with you in developing these systems, and we'd like to be in on the process. We hope that you will work with us to do that. Let me just ask a question or two, and then we'll have a second round of questions. I will come back. I hope that every time I recognize one of the members, they will ask a question that I was going to ask, so I don't need to ask any questions at the end. Several have been asked, but not all of them. I'd like to ask a couple of questions about body armor, and then we'll go to a second round. How can we achieve better protection with less weight, and how do you incentivize industry to do this? Ms. Tsongas has asked most of that first series of questions I had, but this one part of it hasn't been asked. How do we incentivize industry to be more creative and innovative in this area?
Sir, good question. I think in part of your first discussion, I think there's always going to be dynamic tension between the executive, industry, and the Congress, because we all have to operate together. And when you're talking about trying to improve our body armor, we're trying to have our research development arm look at new technologies, which we don't see anything that's game-changing or within the near term that's going to change their ability to provide increased protection at a lighter weight. So I think the next area we need to look at is, what is our requirement, and is it a validated requirement? What are we using as our means to validate that the product is what it needs to do? We just went through a review of our body armor, holistically from head to toe, and we're going through that requirements generation process, and that potentially could allow us to provide a lighter plate to our soldiers. We have technically overbuilt our plates right now. We overbuilt them because of our testing process. We said we wanted, from the way I say it is, we wanted to ensure that you could go in the ring with Mike Tyson, and if you could take 2 hits from Mike Tyson, then when Fuller climbed in the ring, you knew that you would be able to survive those rounds. That's the same thing we've done with our body armor. We used a round that is not on any battlefield in the world, and we set that bar for a reason. Now we're trying to evaluate that bar causes us to have increased weight. Do we want to adjust the bar? That's one way. If the technology can't could get us there? Can we adjust the bar and understand why we're adjusting it? So we're going through that review right now. Having these research and development lines, I think, will assist us in keeping industry interested in pushing their own IR&D, their independent research and development, to try to find new technologies also. But we're looking at this. We're trying to find, is there a new technology? Is there another way to build the plate? We want to incentivize the contractors with our research and development line in fiscal year 12 to have them come forward and say, we would like to have a 20% weight savings in the plate. Can you achieve that, and how would you do that? Again, our end state is every soldier is protected regardless of where they are in the world, and we want to ensure that we don't ever reduce the capability of the plates from what it has to actually stop. But as I said, did we put the bar too high from the process that we used initially?
Thank you. You mentioned a separate line. We're very pleased with that. We have been arguing for that for several years now. The Armor used to be a part of clothing. It is in clothing, but to get the adequate focus on that, we needed a separate line, and we're very pleased that that's it. Two more really quick questions, and we'll go to a second round. Please provide justification for using only government laboratory for all first article and lot acceptance tests for body armor components. Aren't there civilian labs out there that can do just as good a job?
Yes, sir. As you're aware, we, from the PEO soldier perspective, we used to use predominantly commercial labs to do all our testing. PEO soldier is about volume and velocity. Last year, we fielded 230,000 soldiers in the Army with that kit that Sergeant Corp is wearing, and that equal to 17.8 million pieces of kit total. So it's about volume and velocity. When we were changing, when we saw the threat change in Iraq specifically, we went from our SAPI to our ESAPI plates, our small arms protective inserts, to our enhanced small arms protective insert plates. We needed immediately to buy 2 million of these plates, or 2 million sets of these plates. So what happened was we get the industry involved in building, and then we were going to commercial labs to do the testing. We want to ensure that we maintain that high level of fidelity on our testing processes. Through your actions in the Hill, Department of Defense Test and Evaluation is now, our Director of Operational Test and Evaluation, DOT&E, now has oversight of all our testing operations. The second thing we wanted to do was bring our testing in-house to ensure that we could maintain that pedigree from the time we produce that product, the time we test it, to the time we field it through that non-destructive testing process we call the X-rays. So we wanted to bring it in-house. So we brought in our hard body armor testing, we brought in our soft body armor testing, and we're bringing in our ballistic eyewear, our helmet testing, and also even fire-resistant capability. But I'm getting out of the testing business. I don't want to be working with the independent contractors that are doing this testing. I want to go to the Army Test and Evaluation Command and say, here's the capability, I needed this tested, and then they can subcontract, which is what they will be doing, to these private labs. They provide the oversight, they provide the support, they validate the product. I then am a customer to the testing labs. So we want to, it's a fine balance when we're talking about that testing capability within the Army. If we have overcapacity, then we have an inefficiency from a financial perspective because people are waiting for someone to come. We don't want Maytag repairmen at our test organizations. So we want to figure out where should we, what should be their overall capability, and when we have these surges, if we need a new capability and we need to buy a lot of it and then have a lot of testing going on, they go out and subcontract and they certify the subcontract labs, which is what they've done. So they've done that on the hard plate side, they've done that on the soft armor side, and they've done it on the ballistic eyewear. So we actually have a lot of testing ongoing at commercial labs, even though it's now under the Army Test and Evaluation Command.
Thank you, sir. Happy that we still have competition, makes everything better and cheaper, and thank you for assuring that. One more really quick question. We hear a lot of complaints regarding the current pad suspension system being too hard, that it lacks durability. Are you receiving similar complaints? And what types of internal pad suspension systems will be used in the enhanced combat helmet?
Sir, from my perspective, we have 1.1 million soldiers in. There's a lot of different head sizes. We're finding two things going on. One, We actually are a high-tech Army. When we're talking about that body armor, I flippantly say it's your grandmother's china wrapped in Kevlar. It is high-tech. You need to care for it high-tech. That's why we have the X-ray machines. When we put a helmet on your head that gives you great ballistic and blast and blunt trauma protection, it is actually high-tech. You need to have it fitted to you. You just can't say, I think this is your head size, go ahead and wear it. When you wear it and you don't have it fitted to your head appropriately, or you don't wear all the pads that we provide to you, you end up saying, well, the helmet doesn't fit me, I think I need a new set of pads. We're constantly getting the feedback from the soldiers. We're trying to reinforce to them, understand how to wear the kit, understand that the environment that you think you want a softer pad will also potentially create or exacerbate a blast effect that could potentially give you TBI or mild traumatic brain injury. We have to balance all this. We don't know if you're going to be operating in a warm environment one day and in the high altitudes the next day, so the pads have to be able to respond to all those environments. As we go through our enhanced combat helmet with the Marine Corps, we are in our Army combat helmet, we're looking at a new pad solicitation. All vendors, again, full and open competition, come forward. Is there a better pad available than what we currently believe we have? Many people say we are buying a cheap pad. It's not a cheap pad. We don't go for the lowest bidder. We go for the best protection in that helmet to ensure that you give them that blast, blunt, and ballistic protection.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kretz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could someone provide committee with some of the operational feedback you're receiving regarding the operation of the M4 in Iraq and Afghanistan?
Sir. We do post-combat surveys on every brigade combat team that comes out of either Operation New Dawn or Operation Enduring Freedom, so Iraq and Afghanistan. We correlate all that information. We ask them about all the equipment they have to include their M4s. High response on the M4s. We, I believe, lost the system perspective when we talk about the M4 and its capabilities. When we fielded the M4, we used the exact same ammunition that had been developed for the M16. We forgot the system perspective, as Dr. Markowicz talked about in his opening comment. We're trying to provide that soldier the lethality package. It's a combination of the optics, the ammunition, the training, the weapon, and the interface to the soldier. So you have to combine all this together. Well, we didn't think about the ammo when we gave them a carbine that actually has a shorter barrel. So some of the effects that we potentially saw, you saw a greater flash because the bullet, though it's not thinking, thought that it had an additional 5 inches to burn, so when you have a flash at the end. General Petraeus actually did a byline, a personal request. He wanted flash suppressors for the forces in Afghanistan. Immediately responded and got flash suppressors. I contend we actually needed to give them better ammunition, which is now our new 855A1 ammunition. It's optimized to the M4, but it doesn't negate the fact that the Marines are still using the M16A4. Doesn't have any impact. It's just optimized to the M4. So the burn in that bullet exiting the barrel is when the burn completes, so you don't have a big flash coming out the end. When you don't have that flash, you have clean burn. When you recycle the weapon, we use that same gas to recycle the weapon. If the gas is dirty, you potentially could see an increase in dirty operating system inside your weapon, which could potentially cause a jam. So you're going to have to clean it more frequently. Now we have the ability to give you a weapon, optimize the performance of that weapon with the ammunition, gives you better performance in terms of the performance of the bullet, gives you better performance in terms of the performance of the weapon. And the soldiers are saying that they were concerned because we call it green ammunition. It gets the lead out of the ammunition. They thought it was going to be like fat-free and not work well. The soldiers are saying it works very well. It does exactly what they wanted to do. And we believe we're going to see any issues anybody ever had with cleaning their weapon or flash on their weapon will be mitigated from an systems engineering perspective.
Good, good. Just one quick question. As much of the debate and what much of the testimony up to this point has been sort of the alarm that the military has, all branches in the Pentagon, with the CR, that what it does to what you're planning and industry. And I was looking at your soldier modernization efforts. the Army's modernization efforts, 2011 to 2015. And I see the 50 cal, 50% lighter, helmet sensors, combat glove, mountain combat boot, water treatment. Now, these are in your FY11. What's the impact of the CR on these programs, not even looking out in the FY12 through 15?
A great example, sir. When you talked about that lightweight 50 cal, we call it the XM806. 50 caliber machine gun designed to be able to take all that heavy recoil. Our contractor has come up with a concept that's still in development that says that we can give you half the weight of that 50 caliber machine gun at same capability, same ammunition, but at half the weight. We have to delay that program for a year based on the continuing resolution. A lot of our other items, when we look at the mountain combat boots, for example, or Operation Enduring Freedom, camouflage pattern, it is the cash flow is different when we are in the continuing resolution. So it might not have an impact on an actual program, but it has impact on how the cash is flowing. And that cash flowing, we're talking about a lot of small vendors building uniforms, for example. And so we have these ripple effects, which is creating a challenge within PO Soldier on the way that the cash is flowing due to the continuing resolution.
We're just as frustrated as you are, and want to let you know that all of us on this panel are working very hard to move this forward. But thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. Mr. Runyon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick question. You had talked about temperature relating to the equipment. I want to have you addressed body temperatures and fatigue relating to the soldier.
Yes, sir, we have. Matter of fact, Sergeant Corp is wearing today our Army combat shirt. Before, you would have worn your Army combat uniform, which would have been a blouse on top. Then you put your body armor on top, and when you put your body armor on top, you would find that it would retain all that heat in a hot environment, or just because you're now carrying all that weight, as we were talking about earlier, so you're generating a lot more heat yourself. We have a Army combat shirt which has moisture wicking material here in the center underneath where you would have your body armor, and we have both weights, a winter weight and a summer weight, depending on where you are and what the environment is. At the same time, we still want to give them that protection, and the protection we're talking about on the shirt is fire resistant. So it's a fire resistant shirt, doing system engineering, interfacing to ensure that there's no exposure of material that could potentially allow you to be burned if you were in an event that had some flash fire. So that's how we're trying to mitigate some of that. Another item he has on him is the Camelback, or the water hydration system. Having the ability to carry water on you and be able to drink it very easily by just having the tube system keeps you hydrated. So we're, again, thinking of the soldier as a system. Try to think through, what does a soldier actually need? They need to keep them cool sometimes and warm sometimes, and when they're getting hot from all the weight that they potentially be carrying, how do you mitigate that by just wicking the moisture away from them?
Thank you. I yield back, Chairman.
Thank you. As a senior member of the Science Committee, I've now been twice to the South Pole. I just want to use this as an example of how you kind of get in a rut and keep doing the same thing, even though it may not make much sense. At the South Pole, the sun shines continuously for 6 months without a cloud in the sky. That's a real desert. They have 2 inches of precipitation a year. And the wind blows incessantly, sometimes 100 miles an hour. It's blowing 24/7, year-round. Guess where we get our energy from at the South Pole? We fly diesel in on an airplane to run a diesel generator. It shows how you can get stuck in a rut. Obviously, what we need to be doing at the South Pole is solar in the summertime down there and wind all the time down there. I think we kind of got stuck in that same rut with our soldier. If a soldier needs something, of course, he carries it, because that's what soldiers have always done. So if he needs more, he simply carries more. I'm very pleased to note that the 4th Brigade of the 101st Airborne is kind of thinking outside the box. They now have employed 6 donkeys to serve as pack animals to help them carry this gear. Through the centuries, men have found other options than putting it on their back. The American Indian, who hadn't invented the wheel, did find that if he cut down a sapling and put his teepee and so forth on the sapling, it was a whole lot easier to get it to the next site than it was to carry it on his back. And, when we discovered the wheel, we found it was a whole lot easier to put the load on a wheel vehicle and then pull that rather than carry it on our back. And I wonder if we've really been thinking outside the box. If you want a pack animal, I would suggest that a neutered male goat would do a really great job. They're really tough animals. If you bottle feed them, they will follow you around like your pet dog all the rest of their life. And if you're looking for something to carry it for you, you couldn't do better. By the way, there are a lot of goats over there, and they survive very easily in that environment. I would also like to suggest, and again, this is because I'm a farm boy and see some opportunities to make do. I'd like to at least look at why don't we provide the soldier with the means of having that with him other than carrying it on his back. And I'm not sure what that would be, but I'd sure like to look at a few things to address that problem. Let's see, there was a comment made here about please walk through the Army and Marine Corps requirements board process. How often do you meet? What have been the major results of your meeting? What is describing there are all the things that the Constitution says the Congress ought to be doing. Now, I know that the Congress through the years has perhaps unintentionally relinquished most of their constitutional authority to the executive and the courts, and we ought to be about trying to get some of that back. But at least as a minimum, couldn't we be involved in that process so that we understand when you come before us in a hearing how you got there, so that we're a little more enlightened and can be more helpful to you? Would that be okay?
Sir, I'll try to answer that. I'm not an expert on the Constitution, but internally, in terms of the requirements process, we've been looking to how to reform it, and particularly in light of the Weapons System Reforms Act, which has placed an increased emphasis on analysis of alternative and cost-benefit analysis and trade assessments. I know even for the ground combat vehicle, Congress has asked for all the information that had been done for that analysis of alternatives and submitted to Congress, and we are now in the process of doing that. And so in some ways, my request would be that if you relook of how we do that Weapons System Reform Act and how to integrate what has been asked of the Department of Defense and what we're now trying to comply to with your request, so that we have a kind of an efficiency for how we do these kind of cross-leveling across assessments. I mean, frequently my office will get the request from some member of Congress for our analysis of alternatives, or the background for why a certain requirement is the way it is. And we gladly try to share that information. But it is haphazard. It depends upon the system or the congressional interest at the time. So I just asked that if we look at it, we just kind of combine what is now been in terms of acquisition reform with this request to make if it goes forward, how to streamline those two efforts, sir.
Yeah, I'm sure that you have a very mature, meticulous, detailed process for making these very important decisions. You have outside consultants, technical consultants that advise you. You look at the technologies and the asymptote for how far you can go with that technology as you're making these decisions. You do war gaming, which is really identifies deficiencies that you need to address. I'm just appealing that we would like to be a part of that process. Traditionally, Congress has not been a part of that process, but I think that we should have been. The Constitution says that we should be a part of that process. I'm just appealing. By the way, I'm very pleased that you see your exercise in the M4 as determining whether or not there's something better, that you're not determined that you're going to have a new weapon. You want to see if, in fact, this new weapon will be enough better than improving what we've got, that it's worth it. As the old farmer says, will the juice be worth the squeezing? And there are a lot of things in the military where we need to apply that old farm principle to it. Well, I have a lot more questions I could ask, but your time is very valuable. So if it's okay with you, Mr. Runyon, do you have an additional comment or question? Okay. If it's okay with you, we'll submit those for the records, where you can perhaps do a better job of answering it than on the spur of the moment here. Thank you very much for your service. And General Fuller, thank you for your service. The shoes that have to be filled are both figurative and literally really big shoes. Your successor has a real challenge, sir. Thank you for your service to our country. Thank all of you very much for your service to our country. And the subcommittee is adjourned.